Scott Golden here with the WCW Saturday Night Review Series for the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel. Over 1,200 audios available for your listening pleasure, including exclusive interviews and television reviews for old school and new school stuff. August 7th, 1993, WCW Saturday Night is your acknowledgement of the day. Got about, maybe about 30 more of these to do before we move on to another series. If you have a suggestion for another series you'd like to see, we'd love to hear it. Enhancement match for Sting. Sting kind of wandering around at the time. The Colossal Kongs are here on the outside with Harley Race. They are in Sting's face pretty much for the last little while. This is the first deal with an opening that includes the Universal Studios. If not, maybe the second show that has it, but they began that right around the time. Major force in wrestling for the last little while. Anyway, Sting hits the Stinger Splash and the Scorpion Deathlock and gets a victory there. Kong's out there to investigate. Tex and Shanghai Pierce are here, and so is my need to grab my phone. We'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail with more action. And I mean, to be fair, at the end of the day, these WCW late '93 editions are they're a struggle to get through. The summer was a struggle to get through. I enjoy the build to the Flair of the '93 deal with Vader. I enjoy a lot of what goes on at that time. November and December '93 into the first 6 months of '94, there's good stuff in there. But as far as the summer of '93 for WCW is really weak. I think at this point, just based on some crowd reaction, that they're trying to turn Tex and Shanghai. I know when they broke them up as a team, they were more towards baby faces. Tex and Shanghai against Bobby Eaton and Chris Benoit just feels like a styles clash, and was in a lot of ways here. Shanghai Pierce sends Bobby Eaton up into the lights. I can't believe how much of Bobby Eaton's career was really wasted. I mean, I understand he was never a good talker. I understand that he, just never really connected if someone wasn't doing his talking. But at the same time, to know that he was in WCW the entire WCW run, or very close to it, probably within less than, maybe let go in the last 6 months of the run, and to realize how much of his career was not, consistent, just didn't make sense to me. Anyway, big clothesline by Schlesinger Tex Schlesinger along the way. And again, the heels cut off the ring a bit there. It's pretty consistent. Hard shots by Benoit and chops and the like. They try to turn things into a bit of a brawl. Would have been interesting to see. Maybe even Benoit and Eaton with a manager at the time. I don't know who you could have gotten because they were manager light at the time. Maybe Colonel Robert Parker, although he ends up going with Harlem Heat not too terribly long later. Tag off by Benoit. Benoit sends Eaton back in with Shanghai Pierce, which doesn't really go well. Promoting another Clash of the Champions. I think the Clash was a bit becoming redundant at this point. They hang around for another 3 years. I remember when they were a big thing. I think by about '94, the beginning and the end for the Clashes is the writings on the wall. But anyway, eventually Shanghai ends up picking it up. Marcus Bagwell out here doing another singles match. Amazing to me how Bagwell is seen as a pretty big babyface at the time. And also to think that he's 2 years into his WCW run at this point. He and Yoshi Kwan have an interesting match. I say interesting just because stylistically it's a clash, but also Kwan carrying Bagwell to one of his better single matches at the time. Bagwell always to me struck better as a tag guy. I was not a fan of the Buff Bagwell character. I actually thought it was way overdone. Although, to be fair, my interactions with Bagwell in person, I didn't like him as a person either, so that may cloud my judgment. Anyway, backdrops and such by Bagwell. Kicks out by Quan. Quan, pretty persistent with keeping things going and rolling in some kicks and some basic stuff. Irish whip and drop kick upside down to the corner by Quan. Harley Race on the outside managing Quan, which I still think the Yoshi Quan thing could have gone further. Don't honestly remember what happened there. I know he was gone by early '94. So there's a guy who career-wise had a lot of start and stops, and it's unfortunate. I still think he could have done more in the time frame. Anyway, Bagwell with a back elbow and almost sits down on his man, which probably not your best scenario. Yoshi Kwan does get a victory after some kicks in that. Harley Race continuing to taunt Cactus Jack, continuing to go after Sting and Flair. I mean, the idea of Harley Race at the time, who, former multi-time, 7-time NWA champion, still the guy who they were drawing a lot out of. He's gone by sometime in '94, I believe, and that's really sad in itself. Although he does start his Worldly Wrestling, which runs shows up until 2005, 6, 7, something like that. Um, and does quite well producing guys like Trevor Murdoch among others. But anyway, we kind of see Rick Rude with the equalizer makes his way out. Rude, not exactly, going to do a lot. Really short squash match with the equalizer. They're teasing that tag match at the Clash pretty heavily. Rude hits the Rude Awakening, 1, 2, 3, there we go. And then we see a Too Cold Scorpio match. Calling Ole Anderson is on the hotline is suggested. I don't know. Ole Anderson doesn't seem like the type of guy I'd want to call if I was going to put money in as a kid. But anyway, it's there. Anyway, enhancement style match for Scorpio. Not quite understanding. I mean, Scorpio and Bagwell end up becoming tag team champions within the next few months. I've watched up to November. Hopefully, we'll have a good bit of the next several months up over the next day or two. Anyway, but the idea that he and Bagwell are on the same show and don't manage to tag team when they're tag team champions a couple months later doesn't make sense to me. Attempt at the clothesline over the top rope of the enhancement talent doesn't go terribly well for Scorpio either, which is kind of funny just in the sense of he tries to clothesline him over a couple of times. Guy won't go, and then we see Scorpio hit a super kick, and it's not a finish here, as it often isn't a finish these days. And then Scorpio eventually hits the 450 splash from the top, gets the victory, 1, 2, 3, and away we go. Needless to say, not exactly, your greatest of enhancement talent matches. Johnny B. Bad and Paul Orndorff. Johnny B. Bad still wearing the mask due to the facial burns and or scarring from the shot with the Bad Blaster. Paul Orndorff still your television champion, and they go for the remainder of the show pretty much. Although this is actually the tag match, not the singles match. Bad and Steamboat against Orndorff and Payne, which is a match they had promoted last week. Bad and Orndorff start off. Bad takes the majority of control. Tag off to Steamboat. Steamboat pretty well embroiled in a feud with Orndorff over the television championships over the coming weeks. Steamboat running back and forth, chops to the top of the head, and other such unsundry things. Obviously, the alliance between Bad and Steamboat could have been good. I think Bad getting a tag run with Steamboat might have even been fun at the time. But anyway, back suplex by Orndorff and slowing the match down. Match is relatively received rather lightly by the crowd, but one of the drawbacks to the Universal Studios crowd is that you've burned them out by the time you need them to really make an abundance of noise here. So that's not particularly fun either. Anyway, Um, Bad eventually comes back in and gets cut off by Max Payne. Payne, though, goes to the second rope on the inside, misses a splash, 1, 2, and Orndorff comes back up. Bad and Orndorff eventually do have a couple of decent matches on the program as well in the months to come. Cuts off all four guys in the ring, and it's pretty basic at the time. But anyway, um, and all four guys in, misses the clothesline, does Orndorff, and then we kind of go to uh, um, some boxing and shuffling spots, and Bad not getting what he wants out of that. Um, anyway, so eventually we go back to a win for the baby faces. We close the program with an interview for the Horsemen. Horsemen basically talk about taking out the Colossal Kongs, and also talk about building the Horseman legacy. Paul Roma as a Horseman still doesn't make sense to me. Couldn't tell me there wasn't somebody they could have put in the spot in 1993. But anyway, Arn Anderson continues to be one of the best talkers in the history of the business. No surprise there. We will close with this one. We'll be back with more right after this.